Good morning and welcome to it's another interview here at IT Nation Secure in Orlando, Florida. I'm Ray Orsini, and joining me is Peter Kujawa, the VP and GM of Service Leadership at ConnectWise. How you doing, Peter?
I'm great, Ray.
Good. So, talk to me. You have a different angle, right? We talk to so many security people here, so many techs and business owners. We're at a security conference. That's the expected conversation. You're here approaching from a different tack, right? The service leadership stuff is focused on revenue generation, profit centers, understanding the financials for your business. Why are you at a security conference?
Yeah, we're the Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the other.
Yes.
No, we're here. ConnectWise acquired Service Leadership in early 2021, and they did it because we benchmark the IT industry quarterly, and we do it worldwide. And we provide, as a result, we get tremendous data on what drives success, and we provide that data back to anybody who benchmarks with us. We also do a couple of reports every year. But if you look at all of it together, our job is to help raise the partner community success level. And that's why ConnectWise bought us, was that
Yep.
we have a lot of data that shows that partners who benchmark and use our stuff are more profitable and grow faster. And so I'm here exclusively to talk about what drives success, including for security sales and MSPs who are, there's better and worse ways to do go to market on security.
How's the reception been here with talking to the MSPs? Because you and I were talking pre-show or pre-interview, and there's a significant number of business owners here, not just the technical staff, the security staff you would expect to be at a technical conference. How has that been? Are they interested in some of the service leadership stuff and the profitability and seeing beyond just MFA and guardrails
Right,
and all of
right.
those stuff, but the actual revenue that drives these things?
Off
Are
the
they focused on
charts,
this?
off
Yeah.
the charts high. 2 years ago, I didn't come to the conference. It was my first year in the role, and uh, we looked at it, and the determination from the marketing team was that this is the audience at Secure is not really a fit for service leadership stuff.
No.
That our stuff is mostly designed towards owners, and this is more really geeked out security
Yeah.
stuff. And right.
Yeah.
And last year we decided to try it, and the reception was phenomenal. And this year it's been even better. I spoke on Monday to our hosted guest community, and there were about 200 people in that. About 35-40% were owners,
Mhm.
and it was one of the best audiences I've had in the last couple of years. It was phenomenal.
It's funny
They
where the
were off the
surprises come
charts.
out, right?
Yep.
It's like, so 2 years in the role. In February, congratulations. You got your Channel Influencer Award from Channel Futures. Very nice to have that. Yeah, you're always speaking on these things. It's nice to get that little bit of recognition. So congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
But speaking of that profitability, you guys just launched at the beginning of the event on Monday. You launched the annual profitability report. Um, what were some of the highlights that you saw? What were some of the things that stuck out for you?
Yeah, this was our 18th year of doing our annual profitability report. And so the report, every year we look at the trending, the financial trending of the different business models that we track. We track 10 different business models, and including MSPs and VARs are our two largest. So we have a lot of analysis that's the same every year, but we also every year get to decide what do we find interesting. It's our report after all, so
Yeah.
whatever we find interesting,
So what do you find
we get to
interesting?
write about
Yeah,
this year.
you've been doing this so long. What is interesting to you when you look at these reports? Because I imagine some of the trends just repeat year after year, right? On the security side, the MFA conversation. We should not be having MFA conversations in 2024, but we do. And I imagine some of that are recurring themes. What are some of the recurring themes you see, and what are some of the standouts where you're like, we were not expecting this?
Yeah, most of our stuff is around the profit model.
Yep.
A few overall highlights. Number one was 2023 was the fourth in a row great year for the industry. It's hard to believe that going back to the beginning of COVID that we would end up with 4 great years, but they're the best years ever in the industry.
MSPs did phenomenally.
And they're
It's- yeah.
continuing to.
Yeah.
The profit model is now well established. Customer acceptance curve has been crossed. I mean, we're in really a golden age for the industry. It's just a great time to own or run an MSP.
It's funny you say that. I've used that exact terminology 2 years ago. I think I said the golden age for MSP, because we have the tools, the resources, the education, and the ability to reach that we didn't have previously.
Yeah, when I got into this business in 2010, I took over a small and struggling MSP as president, and we're all just trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
Is this all you can eat even viable?
Right.
We'd spend the first
Mhm.
15 minutes of every customer meeting explaining the concept of managed services, right? Today, none of that's the case. We all know how to, it's well known how to run these businesses, but so we have a lot of analysis on that. That being said, there's a massive difference between the profitability of the best in class and the bottom quartile and the median. The best in class has continued to earn about 2.5 times as much as the median. The
Why
bottom
do you think the
quartile,
disparity is there?
well, first of all, while the model is known, running an MSP is a tough business.
Yeah.
Second, and it requires to be successful, you're going to have to make some difficult decisions along the way. Second, there's still a lot of MSPs that have a go-to-market model that's flawed. A lot of them are basing their pricing on their local competitors and trying to match deals that they're seeing and doing these things. And when they do that, they should keep in mind that about 20 to 25% of the market is losing money at any given time.
Yeah.
Right? Literally,
So
Q1, 20% of MSPs were unprofitable.
So how do they correct that, right? Like, because like you said, we've been the age old question. Our version of crunchy or smooth peanut butter is ACE or per endpoint or per user. Like, these are the questions that have been asked. Over the years in tracking this, I'll ask you the hot take question: per user or per device, or does it matter?
For sure, not per device. For sure, per user. We go a step further with it and teach value-based pricing as a concept, but it matters. And what we see is in every market, and not just in the U.S., we see this international, that there's providers that are charging 50 to 70% more than other providers are charging for equivalent services. So it's because they know what they put into the service and they know what their gross margin expectations are and what they need to be getting out of it. So the answer, the suggestion I've got for anybody who's not making money is the information is there. Start benchmarking, join a peer group, right? If you join an Evolve or Service Leadership peer group under Evolve, 100% of the members in those groups benchmark. 100% of them use Sleek, which is our improvement tool. You'll learn quickly where you're making mistakes and and also where you're doing the right things, and be able to reinforce those. Back to your earlier question on special sections in the annual report, we added sections this year on the impact of hyperautomation on the profitability model for MSPs, where we think things are going to go. We added a special section where we analyzed Net Promoter Score data to profitability and saw the correlation between the more profitable companies and Net Promoter Score. That's fascinating
that you see that, because a lot of times MSPs will say we're a relationship-driven business. Our marketing model is very different from traditional enterprise, but enterprise absolutely focuses on NPS score as a metric for financial profitability, revenue generation, lead generation, marketing, whatever. So to hear it that the best in class MSPs, that you're seeing a direct correlation NPS score to profitability. And do you think that is because NPS score is an indicator of profitability, or you think because the intentionality of monitoring that, they're probably also monitoring the other important things, which is netting them the better profitability?
I think it's because the best in class are running their business in a way that charge their customers the most and they deliver the highest quality services to their customers. They have the narrowest tech stack that they're supporting, so their people get really good at it. They're really disciplined on their target customer profile, so they're not trying to sell to customers that are a size they can't effectively support. So they know what they're good at. They stick to that. They're constantly getting better. They're disciplined in their approach, and they're delivering better quality. So their customers are being charged the most, and they're also the happiest.
And actually, we're going to link to Service Leadership, where you can purchase the report. You mentioned you guys are doing a 30% off for this week. But also, Dave Sobel did an interview with Marcus Olson, who did that. He started an MSP, but he came in very quickly, started 2 or 3 years ago, hyper-focused on a startup VCs that focus on startups. He worked on that, worked for their clients in the financial sector. Had a very specific stack, absolutely very standardized. They knew one specific niche and they stuck to it, and they have best-in-class profitability. So we'll link to Dave Sobel's interview for that. So if you want to go watch that, excellent example of exactly what you're talking about. But I want to ask you, you've been doing this a while. You've been pulling the data. You're seeing the results. A lot of times when MSPs say, here, best in class is doing it per user, doing ACE, don't create the objections, don't create barriers to entry, just have a standardized stack, focus on this specific niche or whatever you're doing. That generates the highest profitability. But a lot of MSPs look at that and say, right, that's a UDT, a Presidio, a Team Logic, a giant MSP. I can't do this with a 5-person MSP or 3-person MSP. Is that true? I mean, you have the data.
It is not true.
Okay.
So it's fascinating when I'm in, and we're in front of probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 to 350 MSPs a quarter in person, in peer group environments, and do a lot of one-on-one meetings as well. And it's amazing how often I hear whatever size that MSP happens to be is the wrong size. That for me to be successful, I need to be the other size. And we have a slide in that in our annual report this year, and we broke it down by revenue tranche. And what the slide will show is that in every size range of MSPs that's out there, at least 22% are best-in-class profitability, and at least 20% are bottom quartile. Now, there's a little bit of fluctuation in certain size ranges.
Of course.
For example, the one you were talking about, the sub-$1 million size range, 25% of those folks are best in class, but they had the highest percentage of bottom quartile at 33%.
Okay.
But still, what does that mean? Well, it means that 33% are bottom quartile. Everybody else is at least median, and 25% are best in class, right? So at every size range, the key is how you choose to run your business. At every size range, you can elect to be best in class, and at every size range, you can elect to be bottom quartile. It's really up to you.
It's true. It's always a choice, right? And even if you fail, if you don't have a plan, that was your plan. You know?
It's not to say it's easy.
No,
I ran an MSP for 11 years. We did a turnaround. We grew it. It's a very difficult business. As
and at
everybody
different sizes, you will have different challenges.
Yep,
that is absolutely
right.
true. $1 million, 1 to 2, 2 to 5, like they have different challenges as you scale. And a 5-person employee company has a different challenge than a 50-person or 500-person. But you're saying, if I can distill this down, is you're saying regardless of the category you're in, you absolutely have the opportunity to standardize, to focus on a niche, to get hyper specific about what your service delivery is, and can be that 20% best in class, regardless of because somebody's doing that in any of those categories.
That's exactly right. You can choose to run your business in a better way. It's fascinating. In our data, about 80% of the best in class this quarter were also best in class last quarter and the quarter before.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that once you figure out how to run your business in a certain way, put your foot on the gas, keep doing it, keep getting better and better and better. I'm amazed at the quality of the MSPs that I talked to today. There's so many great ones out there. There's so many guys who've really embraced this, men and women that have really embraced this and are running these just phenomenal businesses. So it's really an exciting time. I mean, it's great.
So two questions. One will be a quick one in the vein of the different MSPs, and then one will be a little longer. First one, same question I asked you about the best in class. Am I too small for best in class? I hear the same thing about peer groups. Once I pass $1 million, once I have more revenue, I'll be one of those guys, and I'll join the group, and that's when I can join. And you and I both know, once you pass $1 million, then you're looking at the $5 million guys, and you're looking at the $10 million, and the $50 million. That imposter syndrome never goes away. But is there a size that's too small to take advantage of Evolve and the service leadership peer groups?
Yeah, I think Evolve created the Evolve One program, which is a monthly, I believe it's a 2-hour call, but it's a monthly call. It's virtual. You're not coming on site. They created that for exactly that purpose. So the idea is, if you have an MSP that's 2 or 3 employees, well, it's going to be pretty hard for you to break away and spend 3-4 days in a peer group environment and getting all this guidance, no matter how good it is.
No, but locked in all day.
From a practical perspective, it's very difficult.
And you know the PTSD of always checking your phone and seeing the team's messages.
It makes the time on site not really valuable. So, so that program was created by Evolve to help introduce those MSPs to the concepts. They could start capturing their revenue in the right buckets and really start understanding gross margin, some of these things early on. And then as they get a little bit larger, I think when you get to about 8 or 10 employees, you're at a size where you absolutely should be in a peer group. That the advice you'll get will help you grow to the next size. And a sign that you're in a good peer group is that there's a bunch of guys in there who are bigger and better than you.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? You don't want to be the smartest person in the group. You want to learn from somebody else.
Now, if I'm the best golfer in the foursome,
There's a
it's
problem.
not a great
No.
group of golfers.
Yeah, no kidding. So let me ask you in that vein, and I apologize to the audience. This is going to sound like a softball sales question because the report is for sale, and the peer groups cost money. But he didn't ask me to ask this question, but I'm genuinely curious. Those top 20 percenters in each of the categories, is there a high percentage of those that are in peer groups? Like, are you seeing those shared traits among that top 20% in each category of MSPs?
Oh, for sure. The peer group operators, they're not 100% the running best in class,
Yeah.
but as a rule of thumb, they're running better MSPs on average. They're coaching each other. They hold each other accountable. Because 100% of them benchmark, they all have a common set of metrics that they're measuring to.
Yeah.
So overall, for sure, our data shows that if you're in an Evolve or service leadership peer group, you're going to have higher profitability on average than the community as a whole.
That's interesting. Why do you think that's because they're paying attention to the right metrics? And sometimes when you do it on your own, you don't know what numbers. Like, there's certain size of profitability you should be looking at your P&L. There's certain sizes you should be looking at your cash sheets, your balance sheets as you grow. Like, these are different things, but you don't know that unless you're getting the advisement. You don't know
Correct.
that unless you've talked to somebody that's been there. Do you think that's why they accelerate so much faster?
Absolutely. They understand the importance of gross margin compared to revenue, and when I talk to MSPs that are not as dialed in on some of these things, I tend to hear a lot of excitement about how many new logos they added or how much revenue they added.
Yeah.
And I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, to be
top line revenue is not the thing.
Our data says that the best in class are actually adding the fewest new logos every quarter. The bottom quartile and the median are adding the most. But the best in class are adding better quality customers at a higher price and at significantly larger gross margin. So I can always tell right away when I'm engaged with a peer group member, particularly one who's been in one for a while. They just have a level of sophistication about how to run the business that's different.
And I bet they know the numbers more top of mind than somebody who's not following as often. Since you're meeting quarterly and you're tracking on a regular basis, like you said with the Sleek, you're tracking these numbers on a regular basis. They know where they're at.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. There's no way to run from it. When you go to those meetings, the folks that are really driving success, everybody knows it in the room, and the folks that are struggling quarter after quarter, everybody knows it and it's going to hold them accountable on how they're going to improve it. So that's really powerful.
Do you see? And so I was talking with I was talking with some MSPs and Marvin B, who's also doing interviews, and Marvin B is a smaller solar practitioner. I want to say solar practitioner. He has subcontractors he'll use on a regular basis. His wife helps him with some of the back office stuff, not unique to our space. And so, talk to him about, he doesn't have the plans to scale to a 500 or 5,000 employee business. He wants to stay sub 10 person. 5 is his good thing. And that's fine. But there's certain classes, there's a lot of MSPs that want to get to the next stage. Do you find they get to the next stage faster when they're in these peer groups?
Oh, unquestionably, they're going to have better guidance on what is going to need to change in their business model as they get to different sizes of businesses. And we see it in the data. In our data, plus or minus 10 million, we see a little bit of a pullback on best in class. They're still 22% or so, but we see a little bit of a pullback as they get around that 10 million size, and then we see it improve again as they get bigger. And the reason is because around that 6, 8, 10 million size, now you're starting to need to add some more sales management. You're needing to add probably a controller or a VP of finance.
You get more revenue leakage at that size. You get doing the audits and making sure you're not losing money from being bloated in different departments. Like, it's a different thing. If you're paying monthly for 10 things in your stack, but Jay McBain say average MSP has 13 items in their stack. If you're a solopreneur or a small business, you know what you're paying for whatever tool. If you're a larger MSP and you may have hundreds of tools and resources, that's a different conversation.
Well, and most MSP owners, they're technologists. They started the business small, they grew it, they added some employees, they get to a size where you got to make a decision. Do I
Yeah.
want to keep being a technologist, or do I want to be a
Run a
CEO?
business. Yeah.
And so working as part of a peer group really helps owners navigate through those transitions. It's amazing too. It also helps them ultimately if they decide to sell their business. That can be a very traumatic transition for an owner. And so there's even peer groups now that are entirely comprised of folks that sold their businesses in the past year or two to help them make that transition in life.
Do you find a lot of MSPs that come into service leadership? Do you find often they have no plans for transfer of ownership or transition plans or exit strategies? Are they missing that? Fairly
Yeah,
often?
we don't work with them as closely as the Evolve team does on those things, but Arlen Sorensen from Evolve likes to say you're going to transition either of your choosing, or you're going to transition not of your choosing, right?
Yeah.
Every business will transition.
Yeah.
It'll be either horizontally or vertically. And so the more you can plan, the more successful it's going to be. What we really do is we really work with the community to help show what's going to maximize your valuation.
Yeah.
And if you're buying, what are some things that you should be looking at when you're going out and doing acquisitions? I talk to a lot of MSP owners now because of all the M&A there has been over the past few years. There's a lot of MSP owners who when you talk to them, they don't want to sell, but they'll talk to me and say, hey, do I have to? I like running this business. We're profitable. I like the team. I'm young enough. And the answer is no. Keep running it.
Yeah.
Run it. Maximize your profitability. Do all the things that will make you more appealing to a buyer later. It'll make you more successful and have an enjoyable business today. But you don't have to sell. But when you do when it is time to sell, you want to prepare as far in advance as possible and be able to maximize it. For many of these guys, it's the only time the only swing at the plate they're gonna get. So you want to do it right.
And so you said something, and you said it very off the cuff, and I want to make sure we focus on this. You said something important. They enjoy it more, and that's something we've all had the struggles of. I joke around like I still carry a backpack with me. I have my MSP GeekCon backpack with me from last 2 weeks ago. But I still have that PTSD from my MSP days. I don't leave my house without a laptop. Not that I'm doing any work nowadays where I'm like, I have to be in front of a terminal, right? But it takes a while to disconnect from that because you're used to the after hours call is going to come in, or somebody's going to call out, especially when you're smaller and you have to do coverage for your staff. And so a lot of these frustrations that are a lot of the reasons the MSPs, if they go a long time without growing, without scaling, like I don't take a vacation, I never take time off, I don't do whatever. I don't think they realize as you get bigger and as you have people that are basically running the company for you, you can get some of that enjoyment back.
For sure, if you're willing to let go and you grow and you start to bring in some more leadership at different levels, it'll still be a challenging business to run. It'll be a completely different set of challenges for you at every size. But that's why, if you think it's a challenging business to run while you're making money, it's just as challenging of a business to run and more frustrating when you're not making money. So either way, it's a tough business. Do it right and make your life as easy as possible, because either way, it's going to be a tough business.
What's the one financial metric, if we had to say, regardless of category that they're in, regardless of size, if you said this is the one financial metric you have to track and know off the top of your head, what's that one metric?
Well, when I start working with a new partner, the first thing I look at is their adjusted EBITDA. The second thing I look at is their service multiple of wages. And so I look at that second because that's going to give me a bunch of questions to ask about the business. It's also going to tell me a bunch of things about the business. And the formula for that is total service revenue, including break fix, project, and managed service revenue. So total service revenue divided by total service wages. And so all the cost of your team to deliver all post-signature services. So including your techs, obviously, your engineers, your service managers, but it even includes your account managers, your VCIOs, it includes your project managers, anybody who is taking care of the client after the hunter has landed the client.
Are you talking including operational, like admin, finance staff in that?
Ops and finance, those folks are going to G&A.
Okay.
So I'm strictly talking about the service side of things. Yeah. So total service revenue divided by total service wages, um, that should be at least a 2.5x. So you should be getting, another way to look at it is for every dollar that you're spending on your service wages, you should be getting 2.5x in service revenue. Best in class has continued to climb. Today, best in class is about a 2.9, but our bottom quartile folks, it's a 1.9 or lower. And so the reason it's so important, when I look at that, I know what to ask. Are they charging enough for their services? Typically, they're not. Are they staffed right? Do they have too high of a ratio of level 2 and 3 techs to level 1 techs? Do they have a narrow enough tech stack that's allowing them to be efficient enough? So it's not going to answer the question, but when I look at a partner who's at a 1.8 or 1.9, I know right away what to start asking them about.
Okay.
And a lot of our partners use that ratio to make staffing decisions. No service manager in the history of managed services has ever gone to the owner and said, "I need less techs, I need less bodies."
Right.
The request always is, "We need more people."
Always.
Well, how do you know?
Yeah.
And this is a great way to know how you're stacking up. And if you're sitting at a 2.2 service multiple wages, you need to raise your prices. You need to look at your staffing. But if you've done all that and you've added some new revenue, the answer is we don't need it yet. We need to grow it more, become more efficient, process based, whatever. But that's my favorite of all of our metrics, and we do over 80 different KPIs. That's my favorite.
Okay, I love that. And so, and looking at that leads into the annual profitability report. You said one of the highlights of there was that you guys focused on hyper automation and where there's revenue loss there too. It's not just the revenue generation. Can you give me some insight on that? Like why there could be the potential for loss there, and what we should be looking for?
Yeah, you bet. So first of all, there's right and wrong ways to implement hyperautomation tools, and we've got a lot of discussion about how to do that. And the short version is it's probably going to need to be somebody's day job to map it out and identify the opportunities. Where there's some risk is more in the pricing. I've already had discussions with MSPs who have said things like, well, if I can drive 30% efficiency gains in my service team, I can cut my managed service pricing by X amount, and I'm going to crush it in the market. And if you do that, you will not only give away any gains that you've gotten from hyperautomation, but under our models, we've played around with this model. You can actually end up making less money than you did before you invested in automation.
Right.
Another place that's a more hidden source of loss for you is if you use hyperautomation to make your project management and your project delivery more efficient. Well, most MSPs, what's the input that they're basing their projects on? When they're scoping a project for their clients, it's based on hours that are going to be put into the project. They look at their cost inputs from a labor standpoint, and they add their gross margin on top, and that's what they're going to base their price on. So if I'm an MSP, and let's say I gain 20% efficiency on my project delivery based on hyperautomation tools, I need to adjust my gross margin target. Otherwise, all I'm going to do is give away those efficiency gains in the form of a lower quote to my customer. I will not actually add anything to the bottom line. So there's nuances like this that we've been talking a lot about.
I love that. And we'll have the link so you can purchase the report, use the 30% off. Peter, thank you. You've dropped a lot of bits of information in the last 15 minutes. The takeaways, as I see them, regardless of company size, you can be best in class. There is no I'm too small to focus on your financials, to get into peer groups, to start talking to people. And the people there are the ones that are scaling faster, are generally in the 20% and are changing categories. And he just gave you the numbers to go calculate for yourself. One of the 80 metrics, one of 80 that are on the Sleek reports. Peter, thank you. I appreciate it. I think you've done a lot to people look at you and see the data that you provide, and that it's easy to picture. Once I get to the next step, it'll be me, and I can take advantage. You've done a lot, in my opinion, to break some of those barriers. So thank you for that.
Well, thanks for having me on.
All right. Peter Kujawa again, the VP and General Manager of Service Leadership here at ConnectWise.
If you found this episode eye-opening, catch more MSP Dispatch at 10 a.m. throughout the week. Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.